Have you ever heard of a king who didn't die in battle, who wasn't betrayed, but instead died from eating too much dessert? It sounds like a joke, but it's one of history's strangest and most shocking true stories. A royal feast, a table full of luxury, and a final bite that ended a king's life forever. This is the unbelievable true story of King Adolf Frederick of Sweden, the monarch who literally ate himself to death. Presented by Biography Plus, where every story uncovers the forgotten truths, the ironies of power, and the shocking moments that shaped our world. He was born into power, wealth, and privilege, but not into greatness. Adolf Frederick of Sweden ascended the throne in the mid-18th century, a time when Europe was ruled by elegance and excess. Kings dined like gods, and royal life was measured not in achievements, but in luxury. Adolf Frederick loved three things more than anything else: food, comfort, and peace. He wasn't a cruel ruler. He wasn't even ambitious, but history remembers him not for how he ruled, but for how he died. First, the people of Sweden adored him. He smiled often, attended church, and hosted grand banquets, but behind those golden halls was a man deeply addicted, not to power, not to wealth, but to pleasure. He loved pastries, sweets, and fine wine. He would often say, "A good king must keep a full belly." While other monarchs discussed politics and war, Adolf Frederick spent hours designing elaborate feasts, trays of smoked fish, reindeer meat, fruits dipped in honey, and desserts drenched in cream. His chefs adored him because no king ever demanded more creativity from the royal kitchen, and yet, that same creativity would soon become his curse. As the years passed, his appetite grew, not just for food, but for indulgence. He ate to celebrate victories, he ate to forget failures, and he ate to escape the boredom of power. But behind the palace walls, Sweden was changing. The nobles wanted reform, the people wanted progress, the king wanted dessert. He became a symbol of royal excess, a man trapped in comfort while his kingdom grew restless. Still, his charm kept him safe. No one dared question a king who could fill their table with gold and sugar. But every story of indulgence ends the same way, with one final feast. It was February 12, 1771, a cold night in Stockholm. The king decided to treat himself to his favorite meal. No one knew it would be his last. He ordered an extravagant dinner, a table overflowing with dishes that could feed an army, and among them, one dessert would make history. A sweet that would outlive the man who ate it. The dish was called semla, a Swedish pastry filled with almond paste and cream served floating in a bowl of warm milk. Adolf Frederick didn't eat one. He didn't eat two. He ate 14. And the night had only just begun. The dinner continued deep into the cold February night. Candlelight flickered on silver plates as servants hurried in and out of the royal dining hall. King Adolf Frederick laughed loudly, raising his glass of wine again and again. He was in high spirits, pleased with his magnificent feast, a meal fit for the gods. He had eaten lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, smoked meats, champagne, and then 14 semla pastries, each one swimming in a bowl of sweet, hot milk. His attendants looked uneasy. They whispered quietly, but the king just waved them away with a chuckle. After all, what could harm a man who had everything? As the feast ended, the king leaned back in his chair, his face red with satisfaction. He smiled and said, "Tonight, I have dined like a true king." Those would be his last words. Moments later, he began to gasp. His laughter stopped, his hand trembled. The courtiers rushed forward, but it was too late. The king's heart, overwhelmed by the weight of his own pleasure, simply stopped. On that winter night of February 12, 1771, King Adolf Frederick of Sweden died, not by sword, not by sickness, but by supper. The news spread quickly across Europe. A monarch had eaten himself to death. Some laughed, others were horrified, but everyone was shocked. It was as if the gods had written a cruel lesson about greed and used a king as their example. In Sweden, people began calling him the king who ate until he died. Even his successor, King Gustav III, joked about it, saying, "My father died of what most men only dream of." But behind the humor lay an uncomfortable truth. Adolf Frederick's death symbolized the end of an age, a time when kings lived in luxury while their people starved. His death became a strange symbol of change, a reminder that even the richest throne cannot protect a man from his own excess. In history books, His reign is often forgotten, overshadowed by the bizarre way it ended, but maybe that's the real lesson. He ruled a nation, yet never ruled himself. He had power, yet became powerless before his own desires. It wasn't poison that killed him. It wasn't fate. It was indulgence, the sweetest and deadliest of all temptations. Centuries later, Swedish people still eat semla every February in his memory. But now, it's a quiet tradition, a way of remembering both the joy and the warning that came with it. They call it Fettisdagen, Fat Tuesday, a day of celebration before fasting. A day that reminds us that pleasure is meant to be tasted, not devoured. So, when you see a king who had everything, yet couldn't stop reaching for more, ask yourself, how much is enough? How far can comfort go before it becomes a curse? Adolf Frederick never found the answer, but his story still whispers it through time. Sometimes, it's not what we lack that destroys us, it's what we can't stop consuming. This was the king who ate himself to death, a tale of indulgence, irony, and the fragile limits of human desire. Presented by Biography Plus. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories that reveal the shocking side of history.